People, and welcome back to the GavGoesIn podcast. So, with Matheus Cunha now signed for Man United, could this signal, the start of a new era for United? I mean, we would like to think so, but to be honest with you, I mean, we can't be sure. But I think one thing's for certain, guys, if we do get this money in for Bruno Fernandes, I think there could be some exciting times ahead, because I think with that money, you can get yourself two midfielders, even two tens, a striker. There'll be money to be spent with some of the sales that are going out as well. So for me, I think this could be the signing that kicks things off, And as I said, with Cunha is a club signing, guys, because Cunha's not been brought in to play specifically in this formation, because I do believe, Cunha can play in the 10 or as a left winger in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. So the fact that he's been brought in, and again, 62.5 million was the release clause, and obviously United will be paying that in installments, so it's a good deal for the club, man. And I think Cunha, I believe he's just turned 27. I think did he turn 27 yesterday or a couple of days ago? So he's just turned 27, and he's in the peak of his career now, you would say. And again, he's going to be tasked with the responsibility, to get Man United back to, where they should be as a club. Let's be honest, So he's the first signing of many, hopefully. I mean, I heard some reports today as well, and some of these reports that keep coming out are just laughable. I'm hearing that Cunha signed with the expectation that Bruno Fernandes would be here. Why would Cunha care if Bruno's here or not? At the end of the day, Cunha's coming in, from Wolves, where there was a ceiling for him at Wolves, and he surpassed that. And as I said, I think, why would he care that if Bruno's going to be there or not? He's got to think about his own career. So these rubbish reports, man, I'm just not buying. At the end of the day, Cunha's got to look after his own career, regardless if Bruno Fernandes is there or not. And the problem is, if Bruno does leave, the team, you would think, would start to look better. Because you're going to have the right profiles in the right positions. So yeah, it's one of them things where, I don't understand why we need to be looking at Bruno Fernandes as a player that Cunha banked on being there. Big up to Agnes Fortinish, big up to Reluctant Killer. So yeah, as I said, guys, I think with Matheus Cunha, I think it's a sign of great things to come, and I watched something yesterday, actually. I think big up to Ransom Bantsman. I watched him do a lineup builder of the likes of what could be coming in the summer to go with the players that United already have. And to be honest with you, what Man United have now, and I done this the other day, actually. So if we look at Man United's players from what they've got now and what they could add, you would say Matthias de Ligt, Lenny Yoro, Mazraoui, I'd put in there as well, actually. The reason I'm in an arm with Mazraoui is because, for me, I think if Man United was to get, because I want to see a left-footed centre-back at left centre-back in this system, And as I said, big up Daniela as well. And as I said, I like Castella Lukeba, but Aiden Heavens there as well. So, but if we're saying Lenny Yoro, Matthias de Ligt, Mazraoui, Ahmad Xerxes, Cunha now, you've got players there that only need about 4 or 5 players coming into this team to make this team, we would say formidable. I would say, obviously links to Mbuemo. I think, as I've mentioned plenty of times, Carlos Baleba for me is the ideal central midfielder to get in. There's been links to Douglas Luiz, and Douglas Luiz would be a great signing, if it's on loan. Who else we got there? Obviously, there's links to Gyökeres. I would prefer United Me personally, I prefer United to just go into the season with Xerxes and Cunha, because Cunha can play as a 9, so as and Xerxes is a 9. You know, if you got Cunha and Xerxes as the 9s that both can play in the 10s, and then you go and get 2 central midfielders and another 10 like an Embuemo, you know, I mean, Cherky's going to City, he's looking like, or a Kudus or something like that. Then all of a sudden this team looks threatening, you know, it looks frightening. And as I said, I think I would rather United get 2 central midfielders like a Baleba, you know, like a Douglas Luiz. I think Adam Wharton's going to be out of range for this season. But if United could get like an Ederson or a Baleba together, you know, and then they can get a right 10, you know, whether it be, I say, Embuemo or a Kudus in that position for this formation, you know, I think United will start to look frightening with what they've got, man. As I said, you know, and if you've got the likes of Kobe, you know, on the bench trying to make an impact, you know, you got, as I say, likes of Aiden Heaven. You know, if Mazraoui could be on the bench, Dallo, if he's still there, could be on the bench. You know, obviously the keeper is another issue as well. You know, but all of a sudden this team would look frightening. And again, in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, you know, you could have 3 in midfield. You could have the likes of, if they bring in a Baleba, Casemiro's there as well, and Ederson in the midfield. And in the front 3, you can have Embuemo, Cunha, Xerxes. You know, Ahmad can play in that front. Ahmad as well can play if you want to rest Embuemo. You know, Sancho comes back, hopefully. You know, he can compete with Cunha. You know, there's options there. You know, I'd love Eze if I'm honest, but again, if Palace show an incline to sell Eze, what a signing he would be, you know. And as I said, there is loads of options for United to do. And I'm looking at the current squad they've got now. You know, there's five players there, 5 or 6 players there that for me will be easily starters or part of the squad. And then, you know, you put some of the youngsters coming through as well, the likes of Sekou Kone, who I heard might be going on loan. If you can put him in that squad, all of a sudden this team would just look different. And as I said, there's a lot of optimism, I would say, from the fan base. And the key thing, as we know, guys, is Bruno Fernandes being moved on. So as I said, if that happens, you know, then I think definitely, you know, we can start to see this team start climbing back up the table, you know. And I think the Cunha signing for me is a great start, but we need to make sure that, you know, that there's certain things in place, you know, in terms of the outgoings, to make sure that there's enough money there, you know. Because if you look at Man United's squad right now, if we're saying the players that could potentially go, you know, you've got the likes of Bruno, you know, 100 mil, Rashford 40 mil, that's 140. If you look at someone like Luke, well, I think Luke Shaw will be difficult to get rid of, but let's say Luke Shaw as well, you can get 10 mil for him, you would say 10, 15 million. You know, that's what, 145, sorry, 155. Then if you look at the likes of, if you don't want to bring back Malacia, there's 10 mil there, 165, you know. Anthony, you know, if you can get like 30 to 40 mil for Anthony, if he doesn't stay, you know, you're hitting like 200 mil now. You know, Sancho the same. If there's 25 mil, that's 225. So there's money there. Højlund, I mean, Højlund, I think there's no one that's going to be biased for him. You know, you could probably get him off on loan. You know, Mason Mount the same, probably on loan, or if someone's dumb enough to come in with a 30, 40 mil bid, which again is unlikely. So yeah, there will be money to Garnacho again, 40 mil. So you know you're hitting like almost 300 mil with the sale of those players, and obviously which will be headed by the 100 million sale of Bruno Fernandes. And then all of a sudden you've got money to spend. You know, Cunha's already in. all of a sudden this team will start looking, will start to look, frightening, man. As I said, and I do believe that Cunha is the beginning of this, and hopefully, Man United can get this over the line. These other deals, I think the Bruno one, from what we heard, yesterday, is looking likely Bruno's on his way. And the thing is, Bruno needs to go. If Bruno's got any sense, he just takes that money. It's life-changing money, generational wealth and that. And if he's got any sense, he takes that. If Man United have sense, if United have any sense, then they will just accept. They would just accept the bid, if it comes in. But I think there's been reports, obviously, that Bruno's given is basically more or less given the go ahead to the move, and all what remains to be seen is this bid now come in, So, but yeah, guys, big up yourselves. Let me see any questions up in there. Just bear me 1 minute, because sorry about that. Yeah, just something come off my phone. But so yeah, as I said, I think there's definitely going to be this is definitely going to be a big summer for United. And as I said, yeah, I'm looking forward to this, man. I just hope that this Bruno Fernandes deal does go through, and if it does go through, or I should say when it does go through, because I don't see this deal not getting done now, because it should have been shut down ages ago if it wasn't going to happen. But as soon as this deal is done, I think Man United will start to get to work, As I said, I keep saying this, Carlos Baleba for me needs to be the addition to this midfield. Brian Mbeumo, Mohamed Kudus. I think Kudus will cost more money. But Mbeumo, Kudus, Baleba, Angel Gomez on a free, Tyler Dibbling, all these players should be looked at. Eze, But yeah, I think, yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. But I just want to look at some of your comments, guys. Big up yourselves as well for coming on. Reluctant Killer says Tottenham manager's out. I mean, I haven't seen nothing at the moment. I've heard that they're in talks with Thomas Frank, and to be honest with you, Thomas Frank is a very good manager. I would like Thomas Frank at United, as someone to kind of get the to get the club up and running again. But I think that if he goes to Tottenham, I'd be interested to see if he takes any of his players to Tottenham. But yeah, I think he's a very good manager. But I've not seen nothing at the moment to suggest that Poch is out. I'm not Poch. That Postecoglou is out. And to be fair, if he does get sacked, at least he can go out with his head held high, winning the Europa League and getting Tottenham into the Champions League. So, his stock will still be firmly up there, even though the Premier League season was a disaster. But winning the Europa and getting him into Champions League, you know what I mean? It's an objective that he wanted to complete, and he done that. Big up to Long Live Mech Warrior, says Amarim out. Yeah, listen, big up yourself for coming on. I think the whole Amarim out conversation for me is kind of dead now. It's kind of quiet now, because it's very clear that this Ineos are not going to get rid of him until next season, because for me, he should have been out after they lost that Europa League final. But the fact that he's still here, again, I don't see too much movement being done on that. But I think, I do think that he has, the start of the season, depending on what players come in. And if he doesn't get a good start, this is when he's going to be under pressure for me. So, as I said, I think it's one of them things where, as I said, I think he's on borrowed time for me. That's what I would say. I'm not going to waste my breath and say this manager needs to be sacked, because everyone knows he should have been sacked. And the fact that he's still here, we have to just watch and see what happens next season, because Cunha's here now. If the thing is, if the likes of Højlund, Garnacho, and Bruno Fernandes are at the club, and Amarim stays, I'm not as fussed, because at least we know better players will be coming in, hopefully. So the whole Amarim out, yeah, I'm just gonna park it for the time being. But as I said, I think he's going to be on borrowed time because, again, if he doesn't start well, his first 5 games of the season are going to be crucial, and it's going to be interesting to see what are the first 5 games, because if he doesn't get good results in them first 5 games, I think he could be out quicker than he expected, because do I think he's got a long-term vision, long-term longevity at the club? I can't see it personally because I don't think he's good enough. But if you're bringing in better players, it's going to produce better results, you would think. So we'll have to just wait and see on that one. But yeah, big up Mods for coming in each and every time. But yeah, guys, let me know if there's any other questions. We've got 8 of you in at the moment, only 5 likes, guys. Let's make sure we smash that like button. 10 of you in there at the moment, sorry. Let's make sure we smash that like button and subscribe to my channel at GavGoesIn. So, and guys, let me know, what do you think of the Cunha signing? Do you think Cunha could be the signing to start a rebuild? Or do you think Man United, need to be keeping the likes of a Bruno Fernandes and build the team with him there? Let me know what you think. Let me know. Because, as I said, I think it's one of them things where, yeah, the money that's been on offer for Bruno Fernandes is too good to turn down. So, yeah, as I said, let me know, guys. Let me know. Guys, I will be back at 4 o'clock. As I say, I'm only going to do a couple of... I'm doing a couple of streams today, a few short ones today. But there's a certain player that Man United have been linked with, and I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about him, but I've been doing, I've seen a couple of clips, and to be honest with you, he looks raw, but he looks promising, I would say. It looks like he's got a lot to offer in the future, and he's been linked with United. So yeah, make sure you guys are back at 4 o'clock, and we're going to discuss a certain player. So obviously you guys will see it in my schedule anyway, on who the player is. So yeah, give that a watch, guys. But big up yourselves for coming on. As I say, there's 10 of you in at the moment, only 6 likes. It's at least get the 10 likes, guys. And as I said, make sure you join back at 4 o'clock. Take it easy.